Coachella just wrapped up their second weekend, and if you were like me watching the live stream or other people's Instagram stories, it looked like a success, and by all accounts, it was. But maybe not to the extent that it used to be. For decades, Coachella general admission passes would sell out almost immediately after they went up for sale. In 2024, that streak broke, and tickets were available for months after they first went on sale. In 2025, Coachella began a new streak, 2 years in a row of not selling out. But look, I'm not gonna sit here and insult your intelligence or waste your time by pretending like Coachella is going anywhere. It's one of the biggest music-related events of the year, period. Fans love it, artists love it, and the people in charge of it are swimming in money like Scrooge McDuck, even if they aren't selling out every single ticket that they put up for sale. And plus, once you realize that the festival is more than twice as big as it used to be and happens for 2 weekends instead of 1, you realize that even if it's not selling out, that is a hell of a lot of people and a hell of a lot of money. But the same can't be said for some of the other festivals on the circuit. There are so many music festivals, many that you're probably unaware of unless you live near them. For me, being friends with a lot of artists who end up playing festivals, sometimes they post the poster on Instagram because they're on the lineup and I'm like, I don't even know what that festival is. And as an attendee, plenty of the festivals that I look back on from my golden age are no longer with us. In college, I would go to Made in America in Philadelphia. That one's gone. I went to Panorama in New York and saw Frank Ocean. That one's gone. People in LA used to go to FYF. Gone. With the uncertainty today of the American economy, many are starting to speculate if that festival boom is coming to an end. And today we're going to look at how we got here with the festival economy and see what's in it for everyone involved. Are the fans still getting their money's worth even as prices go up every year? Is it still worth it for the A-listers to headline festivals? And for the smaller artists on the bill, do the benefits outweigh the costs? And for the people actually in charge of putting on these events, is the effort worth the profit? Even if that profit is getting smaller and smaller? We're gonna dive into all that, but first, if you like videos on music like this one, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe. It helps the channel so much. I post a video every week. If you wanna see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI Gaviota, throw me a follow, and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos one day early in that broadcast channel for free. Also, my group Elmjack is dropping a new song, Closer Sober, this Wednesday, but because I like y'all, I put the link to the video in the description so you can check it out a little bit early. And if you like the shirt that I'm wearing right now, my friend Kane is currently battling cancer. He's an incredible guy, someone who's helped out so many artists like me with graphic design, management, just a guy who's been around, he's a legend. All of the proceeds of his shirt go towards him and his daughter as he fights cancer. So I'm gonna put the link to that in the description as well. All right, let's get back to the video. Well, there were events resembling music festivals as far back as ancient Greece. The 1967 Monterey International Pop Festival is widely considered to be the prototype for the music festivals that we see today. It was headlined by acts like the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Janis Joplin, and Otis Redding. Tickets ranged from $3 to $6.50, and people have estimated that up to 90,000 people were in attendance. 2 years later came probably the most infamous and important example of a music festival in history, Woodstock. While the event planners expected 50,000 people, almost 500,000 people showed up in upstate New York, in what became one of the most defining moments in modern music history, and was also a huge part of the hippie movement in the American 1960s. A year after Woodstock in 1970 was the first Glastonbury in England, which to this day continues to be one of the biggest and most prestigious music festivals out there. The 1980s saw the continuation of the popularity of the music festival, with massive events like Live Aid, a charity show that took place simultaneously in Philadelphia in the UK and raised $125 million for famine relief. In the early 1990s, the first Lollapalooza happened, and today that's a worldwide brand. A Woodstock revival for the 25th anniversary happened in 1994, although the sequel was mostly remembered for being really muddy and a lot more corporate than its original hippie-laden ancestor. The 30th anniversary show, Woodstock 99, was a complete shit show, and there's a documentary on it that goes into way more detail, but in short, it was overattended, understaffed, and full of riots and antisocial behavior, including some pretty heinous stuff. It got to the point where, after Woodstock 99, the whole concept of the music festival was kind of on the brink. People were asking, was humanity capable of getting together at a large scale like this without it turning into a reenactment of Lord of the Flies? And a few guys in California set out to prove that it was still possible. That same year, in 1999, a punk rock promotion company called Golden Voice hosted the first Coachella. Tickets were $50 per day. When I went in 2023, that might have gotten me 2 chicken sandwiches, but we'll get to that later. There was a total paid attendance of a little under 40,000 across 2 days. While the festival was not particularly a financial success, that wasn't the only goal, as they set out to also prove that music festivals could be safe and orderly, and something that corporations could put their name on. And that aspect of it went over swimmingly. In a Rolling Stone article recapping the show, an officer from the Indio Police Department called the crowd very well behaved. Who's a good boy? The festival took 2 years off before returning in 2001, but this time with big corporate money. A month before the second Coachella, Anschutz Entertainment Group bought Golden Voice for $7 million. Anschutz, which you're more likely to recognize by its acronym AEG, is the main competitor of Live Nation, Ticketmaster, the big bad wolf of the music industry. And if you hate Live Nation and Ticketmaster, you probably wouldn't like AEG either, they just don't get as much attention. Today, AEG is the second largest live music and entertainment company to Live Nation, and is the largest owner of sports teams and sports events in the world. It owns things like the ticket company AXS and the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles. While large-scale music festivals always required some sort of financial backing to get off the ground, and there are records of people online complaining about the corporatization of earlier music festivals in the 90s like Woodstock 94, the 2001 purchase of Golden Voice serves as a reasonable point for when the music festival became the cold, hard business event that it is today. Within a few years, Coachella started printing money. It expanded to 3 days in 2007 and then 2 weekends in 2012. In 2017, Billboard reported that they earned $114 million in profit. I guess that $7 million purchase was a good investment. The success of Coachella and of other festivals like Glastonbury and Lollapalooza led to an explosion in the demand for music festivals. Bonnaroo in Tennessee started in 2002, and Governor's Ball in New York started in 2011. Electronic music festivals like EDC and Ultra and Tomorrowland revolutionized that scene of music and turned it into an international money printer. Warped Tour took the hottest artists in pop punk and emo and brought them around the world. Today, Rolling Loud has done something similar for the Hip Hop Festival. But things came to a screeching halt in 2020 thanks to the pandemic. With people itching to go back outside after a year or so on the couch, there was a huge demand for festivals and concerts in general in 2021 and 2022. Coachella, after having to take 2 years off, went right back to selling out in 2022 and 2023. Outside of the festival's massive tours like Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, Beyonce's Renaissance Tour, Drake's It's All a Blur Tour, and Kendrick Lamar's Big Steppers Tour, took over stadiums and arenas and moved crazy numbers, and these are just a couple examples. But 2024 saw a decline in the success of the arena tour. I covered it last year, and I'll link that video in the description if you want to get caught up on it. Unsurprisingly, some festivals have seen a dip in attendance as well. Coachella has not sold out for 2 years in a row now, and the discourse machine has been going brr as we speak. Remezcla ran an article called The Mess. The music festival bubble is bursting. Here's what needs to change in October 2024. SF Gate ran an article that same week with a much more direct title, We're Effed, and counted the bodies of the music festivals canceled that year. The Sierra Nevada World Music Festival, Desert Days, Skull and Roses, and the Float Fest in Austin, Texas also found its way to the chopping block. Pitchfork announced that their long-running festival in Chicago would end as well. J. Cole was even saying that this might be the last year of his successful festival Dreamville Fest in Raleigh, although it looks like it might continue on with less involvement from him. There's a perfect storm of circumstances that's leading to this backspin. Overestimated demand, an uncertain economy, rising prices, underwhelming lineups, and the costs of putting on a show just being generally higher. So let's see if it's all still worth it and understand what might need to change. We can start with my own experience. As a diehard Frank Ocean stan, I knew I had no choice but to attend Coachella in 2023. And just for the record, I thought his performance was great. I had a great time, and if you watched it live on TikTok, there's like a decent chance that you watched my TikTok live. But let's run through how much it cost for my girlfriend and I to go. The general admission ticket itself with the shuttle pass was about $700 per person after the fees. We live in New York, so we had to fly there. I made a business trip out of it and made a lot of music, but you know, my round trip flight was $450. As someone who does fly to LA a lot, I can say that usually the prices from New York are like $100 to $200 cheaper than that when it's not Coachella season if you buy them early enough. We kept trying to find an Airbnb, but they would cancel on us and then jack up the prices, probably because they didn't realize it was Coachella season when they first put the dates up. And eventually we had to settle for the Residence Inn Palm Desert. During Coachella weekend, that hotel bumps their prices up 5 times over. Literally, we had to pay $2,200 for 3 nights in this hotel. And it's a regular hotel. It is not the White Lotus. This was just like a Marriott. I know it's supply or demand or whatever, but it was so expensive. It was actually so expensive that we had a friend of a friend crash on the couch for a couple $100 just to bring the cost down. If you're watching this video, that was a lot of fun. Let's do it again sometime. I was just curious, so I hopped on their website to see how much that room would cost on a random weekend in May. Sure enough, it's about $175 a night. People can save money by camping, but I don't have any experience camping. Look, I'm a city boy at heart. I didn't want to go in over my head. But I gotta say, if I do go back to Coachella, I mean, first and foremost, I hope I go back as an artist. But if I do go back to Coachella as a fan, I'm probably gonna camp next time. Add in the cost of a rental car on Turo to actually get to Indio from Los Angeles, which I went super cheap on, and then another $15 to $20 a drink if you're drinking. It was an insanely expensive vacation. Like, my girlfriend and I love to travel, and this is up there with like the most expensive vacations we've ever taken. Like, it literally cost me less to go to Japan for a week and live good than it did to go to Coachella for 3 days. Of course, you can offset the upfront cost of going to a festival like Coachella by utilizing the buy now, pay later option. Forbes covered the rising phenomenon of people paying for Coachella in installments. According to the article, about 60% of the general admission ticket buyers use the buy now, pay later option. Anecdotally, I spoke with a bunch of people on Instagram this year just to get a feeling for how many people are really doing that, and a lot of them said the same. You only have to pay like $50 down and then you can spread it out in installments. Of course, if you spread it out in too long of an installment, you're gonna pay a lot of interest on it, which is just how things work. Some even use the buy now, pay later option on things like travel and lodging. Now, this is not a financial literacy channel, so I'm not here to tell people what they should and shouldn't be doing. But there are many people who believe that Klarna and these buy now, pay later options are a bit predatory. The Forbes article points out that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says that 43% of buy now, pay later users overdrew their bank accounts in the last year. Without trying to make any blanket statements about who should and shouldn't be attending Coachella, we can use this data to see that at a baseline, the festival is super expensive and it stretches the wallets of a lot of the people who attend it. And it's gotten more expensive over the years. Forget about the $30 tickets in 1999. The price has risen from $429 in 2020 to $649 in just 5 years. With even more economic uncertainty on the horizon, like the threat of tariffs sending the markets on a roller coaster ride that they wouldn't let you get on as a kid until you were like 4'8", and some financial experts saying to brace for a recession, it's fair to wonder when the music festival will become just too far out of reach for the average person. Someone in my DM said they had to sell their favorite record to attend the festival. Someone else in my DM said they know somebody who bought a VIP ticket with 32% APR for 2 years, so they're gonna pay $1,900 over the course of that to go to Coachella. In a few years, I might be pitting my two kidneys against each other in a Squid Game type competition so that I can go to the Frank Ocean Redemption headlining show. So to find out what actually happens to music festivals during the recession, we can use the Bay Area's Outside Lands Festival as an example. The August 2008 Outside Lands had an attendance of 130,000. The stock market crashed just a month later in 2008. And the 2009 and 2010 festivals saw 90,000 and 80,000 attendees respectively. Once the economy roared back, the festival jumped to 180,000 attendees in 2011. Coachella and Lollapalooza can probably survive anything but like a 1929 level economic collapse. But the middle class of festivals could be at risk. When something is this expensive to the fans, it sure as hell better be worth it. There are things that hinder the fan experience at festivals, some of which are easier to figure out than others. I personally had a great time at Coachella, but it does take a pretty long time to get in and out, which is the nature of a festival in a location as far away from a big city as Indio. As a New Yorker, I'm spoiled with Govball where I can just get on the 7 train and go home. Queens get the money. I was just at Dreamville Fest where my friend Daniel and I spent over an hour walking to get an Uber, only to never actually have enough connection to get an Uber, and then to just hail down a random cab who we paid $50 to drive us like 7 miles. It was so crazy out there, we even picked up another random guy on the way as like some sort of twisted Uber pool. If you're watching this video, I hope you got home safe because I really don't know. And a big part of this is our fault because we could have researched that this happens every year at the festival and maybe we would have considered renting a car and getting a parking pass, but that would have made the trip way more expensive. So honestly, I'm not sure if we would have done that either way. Attendees can accept that getting in and out of an event with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people might take a while. But what about the actual music experience of the concert? Festivals are sort of like a playlist on shuffle version of a concert. You look at the lineup and you see if there's a line of artists across different parts of the bill that would add up to one full day of fun at a festival, and then if that matches up for you, you buy a ticket. It's gonna cost me anywhere from 2 to 10 times as much as it would be to see my favorite artists when they go on tour. Because I live in a city like New York, usually I can see them on tour. It's a little bit different if you don't, and so you gotta take into consideration some people like don't get to see their favorite artists on tour depending on where they live. Sometimes the allure of one big headliner is enough to get me to go. At other times, it's a combination of a bunch of artists that I like a lot, but maybe wouldn't just go if it was only them. but that's enough for me to pull the trigger. But nothing drives me crazier than buying a ticket to a festival because I see two artists on the lineup that I like just for them to have conflicting set times. It feels like choosing between one of my two imaginary children. This happened to me at Coachella in 2023 when J. Paul and Sunset Roller Coaster were playing at the same time. J. Paul was playing literally his first show ever, and Sunset Roller Coaster is from Taiwan, so they don't come to America very often, and the one time that I saw them in New York, it was one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to. So I ended up picking J. Paul because of like the scarcity of it all, but I was pretty sad that I missed Sunset Roller Coaster, and it's like, I don't get to get a prorated amount of my money back because one of the artists on the lineup that I bought a ticket for actually conflicted with another one. Do you know what I'm saying? Some smaller festivals like Dreamville Fest can circumvent this issue by only having 2 stages or 3 stages and not having music playing at the same time on 2 different stages. But for these bigger festivals, you gotta make some sacrifices sometimes. At the end of the day though, not everyone is a bottom of the poster diver like myself. A lot of people just buy tickets to festivals for the overall experience itself, and then others might do it because they really want to see one big headliner. But for the latter, there's been some sentiment that headliners have been a little lacking recently. In the Remezcla article, they spoke to a Colombian YouTuber named Jose M, who put it in pretty clear terms. The notion of headliners is outdated. There are no more Michael Jacksons or Madonnas, these super iconic artists that reach you through traditional media back when those outlets were monopolized by major labels. The landscape has been segmented into niches. There's no longer a consensus on which artists are popular, and even global stars like Bad Bunny and Taylor Swift would rather play their own concerts than adapt to a festival format. This is a feeling that a lot of fans have. Let's look at Coachella's headliners last year. Lana Del Rey, Tyler the Creator, and Doja Cat. Big artists for sure, but Tyler is constantly on tour. I personally saw him headline Govball in 2019, and I saw him at Panorama in 2017. He puts on a great show, but people have had plenty of chances to see him. Tyler, Lana, and Doja Cat are of course huge artists, but I think it's fair to say that they're a step down from the Beyoncés and the Rihannas of the world. You can make an argument they'd be bigger than Frank Ocean right now, for example, but what Frank has going for him as a headliner is scarcity. He disappears for long periods of time and very rarely plays shows, which makes his actual shows a must-see for his fans. Lana has already played Coachella in 2014, and Doja, like Tyler, is frequently touring. Festivals can easily drum up excitement when they have the biggest of the big artists or the mysterious artists who are hard to find. The answer that most people would come up for this problem would be, okay, get Beyonce, get Rihanna. I mean, these festivals like Coachella make a ton of money, why can't they do it? It's not that simple. Trapital, which is one of the best music industry newsletters and podcasts out there, and I highly recommend checking it out, did a great breakdown of this issue last year in a memo that they called, "Do Music Festivals Have a Superstar Problem?" They used Beyonce as a case study. In 2018, she headlined Coachella and made $4 million per weekend. That might sound like a ton of money, and I mean it is, but just for reference, on her Formation tour in 2016, her show at Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium made her $6.7 million. Now you might be asking, okay, just do both. But festivals often include something called radius clauses, which stops an artist from performing within a certain mile radius of the festival for a certain amount of time. So basically, to stay in New York here, if you want to play Govball, but you also want to go on tour that year, you're probably going to have to skip New York on your tour. There's actually a way that Govball fans on the Reddit figure out who's going to be on the lineup before the lineup comes out, because they're like, ooh, he didn't put New York on the poster. It's probably because of a radius clause. But anyway, we're looking at $8 million for 2 shows versus $6.7 million for 1, without factoring in how much it costs for each of those things to happen. Given that both of these shows, the Coachella show and the Formation tour, were probably very high production things, they probably both cost a lot of money to put on. And for the Formation tour, you gotta add the cost of transportation, like to continue for the whole tour. Beyonce was able to sell the rights for a Coachella documentary to Netflix for $20 million, and her Coachella performance was a moment, and she capitalized on it. Fast forward to today and her Renaissance tour, and she's taken things to an entirely different level. She grossed $45 million over 3 shows at SoFi Stadium in LA, and if that wasn't enough, she filmed it and grossed $44 million at the box office with the movie from the tour. Forget about playing at Dodger Stadium, a couple more shows at SoFi, and she could sign Shohei Ohtani herself. Coachella is genuinely small fry stuff for her financially, and while it can still be a cool moment, she's already done it. So the benefit of running it back is limited. An artist like Rihanna could theoretically come back with a Coachella headliner type situation, but she had the opportunity to do that at the Super Bowl, which is a more prestigious and coveted stage at the end of the day, at least I think. And while artists don't get paid for doing the Super Bowl directly, the benefits that they get to their back catalog, and for Rihanna specifically selling her Fenty products, blows the Coachella money out of the water probably. Ditto for Kendrick Lamar and Usher, who are also recent Super Bowl headliners. And hey, like we said before, and we'll talk about this a little later, there aren't that many more superstars coming behind these guys who are ready to be the next Beyonce and ready to be the next Rihanna, and we can talk about that a little bit later. This isn't to say that the Coachella stage isn't an incredibly coveted opportunity, and for artists on the brink of superstardom, Coachella and other festivals can be a coming out party for them. Chappell Roan had an incredible breakout year in 2024 and an unlikely one. After grinding for years and getting dropped by her label, her festival circuit run helped cement that this was something serious and not just a viral song or a fad. She had the 5:30 p.m. slot at Coachella last year and stole the show. The AV Club reported that her set at Boston Calling drew 40,000 people by itself. Stefan Thev, an artist who was also on that Boston Calling lineup, recalled how crazy the hype was for her. Ooh bro, I was not familiar with her game until that day. No glaze, I'd say like 60% of the people there came for her. I've seen so many people with the pink cowboy hats, and in my head I'm thinking, I didn't know people mess with Meg that much in Boston. Then the kid driving us around in the cart told us it was for Chappell, and I was shocked. It was more of the same for her at Govball, with even more fans showing up in droves wearing pink cowboy hats. Festivals are more than just a paycheck for the artists and a good time for the fans. They can also create moments that help an artist transcend. Chappell Roan is only doing festivals in Europe this summer, but you can bet your ass that the next time she plays a festival in America, it is not going to be a 5 p.m. time slot. The crazy crowds with pink cowboy hats show that a festival can build hype and excitement outside of its headliners, but they need to be in tune and pick artists who are right on the verge of a huge upswing. Festivals get planned months, even years in advance, so it's easier said than done. A savvy artist can even make something out of nobody showing up to their set. Eam Triplin had a really early set at New York's Rolling Loud in 2022, to the point where he only had 12 or 13 people in the crowd. So he posted a video and said, gotta start somewhere. And all of a sudden it went viral and a bunch of people were tuned in. Rolling Loud even sent him an Xbox to be funny and said, hopefully you get 20 people next time. Just 6 months later, he played another Rolling Loud and he got an exponent of 20, showing serious growth. Some artists think they're too cool to play in front of small crowds. One meme that goes around a lot is the rapper Autumn canceling his show because only 85 people bought tickets, which I'm always like, it's actually not that bad, but whatever. Hey, some artists just know how to make lyrical lemonade out of lemons. Mike Dean shared a video of Travis Scott playing to a similar crowd in 2013, and Travis went on to host his own festival just a couple years later, although the tragedy there has overshadowed what was once a clean-cut success. There is a whole economy of smaller artists who can really be the lifeblood of a festival. They aren't getting Beyonce money, but they still find ways to put on a good show. Dreamer Isioma is a festival veteran at this point, having played at Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, Something in the Water, Lyrical Lemonade Summer Smash, Capitol Hill Block Party, Afropunk, and Kilby Block Party. I asked them about how they approach playing festivals versus playing their own tours. At festivals, I move as if nobody knows me. I save my more lit or known songs for the middle of the set because that's when the most people are there. Definitely a lot more crowd participation and less talking between songs because the people came here to hear music, not me yap about my life. For my own set, I cater to my superfans, performing fan favorites and deep cuts if possible, but I also understand it's many people on the bandwagon, so I still save my most known tracks for the middle of a set. Dreamer has a dedicated fan base with multiple projects under their belt, and also has a viral TikTok song, Sensitive. So they have to figure out how to walk the line at a festival where some people are going to be huge fans, some people are going to only know Sensitive, and some people will not know Dreamer at all. But still, they end every set with the same attitude. Gotta save the song you want them to remember last. For example, I just dropped a project and I need them to remember that, so I'll play a song from that project last. At festivals especially, you pull random people in at different parts of the set, and if someone's about to go on after you on that stage and you're earlier in the lineup, then there might be more people there because they're waiting for the next person. So that's really a great opportunity to win some new people over and to have some intentionality with what song you pick at the end. Dreamer's new album, Star X Lover, is an absolute banger. Definitely go check it out. Something that fans maybe don't think about too much is that their favorite artist sets also cost money to put on. You gotta pay for the band, the theatrics, and everything in between. So when Beyonce is getting paid $4 million, she can definitely afford to pull out all the stops. For artists lower on the bill, they're not getting that much to work with. Festivals are your big moment, so you want to maximize the odds that you walk away with some new fans. When Stefan played Boston Calling, this was a big consideration. So in all honesty, I got paid $1,500 for that. If I lived in Boston still, it would have been smooth. But when you take into account the flight and paying the whole band for their time with rehearsals and show, I definitely spent more than 60% of it on that. There are ways that artists like Stefan can maximize their performances without spending too much money though. I figured from watching so many festival performances from home growing up, I always noticed a lot of artists I like do a little extra with certain songs to give it that energy. So the set list was definitely different from a show I'd usually do. Me and my boy Shane Dillon made an intro and outro for the set and added elements to certain songs to give it more energy and made the set list a little more thematic in a way. Sometimes for a bigger artist who can afford to take a loss, the best move is to put the show over profits altogether. When Cardi B played Coachella in 2018, she revealed that she made $70,000 each weekend, but lost money after spending something like $300,000 on the set. But when that's factored into the Cardi B world building, and a year later she sweeps the Grammys, it looks like money well spent to me. At the end of the day, a savvy artist can make any set, small or big, into a moment. And so the artist's demand to get on that middle to the lower set of the poster is never going to change. In fact, with touring getting more and more expensive, the festival bag might be one of the only consistent options remaining. But how stable is that bag? J. Cole started his Dreamville Festival in 2018, and by all accounts, it's been a success. It's sold out multiple times, and this year he announced it would be the last one, and so predictably it's sold out, with New Yorkers like me flying down for one last chance to see it. Lo and behold, it wasn't really the last one. I was actually at the festival and I checked my phone and I saw a notification that there was an article out that said that the Dreamville Fest was going to continue, although under slightly different leadership. And during his performance, Cole actually talked about why he decided to take somewhat of a step back from the festival.
We said this is the last Dreamville Festival, correct? That's what we said. And I'm just keeping it 100 with y'all. That should be a lot. It'd be a lot because we want to put on some amazing shit for y'all. We want to do it for Carolina, you know what I mean? We love being able to offer that and bring amazing artists. That should be a lot.
Festivals are a lot of work, but when they're popular, they're literally money printers. So at the end of the day, corporate sponsors and companies are going to keep it going as long as they're still making money off of it. How do they ensure that they can keep toner cartridges in the money printers if they can't get the biggest artists to headline? And people who would ideally be buying the tickets are going broke. The first thing that we're going to see is a squeezing of the margins, and to be honest, I think we're already seeing that. I told you before that Coachella's pass price has increased from $429 to $649 in just 5 years. That, to put my math teacher hat on, is an increase of 50%. That's pretty intense. I could see festivals trying to funnel more people into GA Plus or VIP, perhaps by making the standard GA experience less good, which is what I would call like the airline method. It seems the most likely to me that costs are going to get passed on to the consumers, whether it's the ticket price or the drink price or the food price or whatever. But it's also realistic that they're going to try to squeeze a little bit out of the artists too. It won't work on the headliners because, as we've established, the big guys have other options. But the mid-tier and smaller tier artists who are just fighting to be on the list in general might actually take lower amounts of money to still do it just because of what they can get out of it. But weakening the lineup runs the risk of creating a festival that nobody wants to buy a ticket to, and that's how you end up on the chopping block with cancellations. It's inevitable that a few more festivals are going to find themselves in that situation in the next few years as long as the economy continues to be as unstable as it currently is. While having a show-stopping headliner will always be a surefire way to have a success, at least in terms of ticket sales at a festival, with the way music is trending, there are less and less of those like ubiquitous, no doubt, superstar headliners. Instead, like Jose M said in that article, things are stratified and niched down. Monoculture is dead. Artists that are superstars in my world might not be in your world, and vice versa. We can look at this Coachella where Charli XCX wore a tank top that said Miss should have been headliner when Green Day was headlining that day. To some people, Charli XCX would have been their headliner choice, and to a lot of people, it would have been Green Day. These are people with two entirely different realities, and how are you supposed to sell them the same festival? For example, I don't really listen to country music. I don't have anything against it. It's just not something I really grew up with. And if I was on the subway with Morgan Wallen while he was riding his way back to God's country or whatever, I wouldn't even recognize him. But to half the country, he's a superstar. The vast majority of the audience at Dreamville Fest looks at J. Cole like some sort of deity. But when I saw him at Govball, he had a set time earlier than Playboi Carti. What I'm getting at with this is that I think the future of music festivals will be niched down. And to be clear, it's been building that way for years. While there are DJs and electronic acts at the big varied festivals like Coachella or Govball, electronic-only events like EDC Las Vegas have been pulling in almost twice as many people as Coachella has for the past few years. When We Were Young Fest brings out Gen X and elder millennials who grew up on emo and punk, gets them to call a babysitter for the night, break out the old eyeliner one more time. Lovers and Friends tried to do a similar thing for 90s and 2000s R&B and hip-hop, although it got canceled due to weather reasons last year. Stagecoach is a country festival that's held in the exact same location as Coachella a week after it, and they've been steadily pulling like 75,000 people for years now. And as country continues to grow as a genre and reach more people, it's probably only going to get bigger and bigger. Niche down festivals are able to establish their own culture and vibe, to the point where they might not even need to rely on the biggest name to headline. Rap fans know exactly what to expect when they buy a ticket to Rolling Loud, but they don't really swing for a Drake or a Kendrick Lamar or even an older act like Jay-Z to headline. Instead, they wheel out some combination of Playboi Carti, Travis Scott, Future, and A$AP Rocky every year, and people keep buying tickets. You can argue that Playboi Carti is definitely a superstar in that tier. Travis Scott has a pretty fair argument in that case. A$AP Rocky, love him to death, has not dropped an album in 7 years, and somehow is consistently headlining Rolling Loud every year, and people keep buying tickets. Just an example of how niche down these festivals are. Another reason why Rolling Loud can be seen as a model for the future of music festivals is, I would guess that the average cost of a set is cheaper at a rap festival than it might be at Coachella, where people are constantly trying to one-up each other, bring out all these crazy things. Like, don't get me wrong, the big acts at Rolling Loud are gonna have pyrotechnics and big show things going on, and they might be spending a headliner's amount on that, but there's a lot of acts at Rolling Loud that are just DJ, hype man, rapper. And God knows if he's even paying those guys on stage, you know? It's a lot easier for artists to walk away with a profit if they don't have to pay an entire band. And hey, Rolling Loud is gonna charge you the same amount for a beer that Coachella is, so it works out for them too. In the early days of Rolling Loud, they were even charging people to perform on a certain stage. You can call that the GA++ tier, where you get a ticket and then 15 minutes on the mic. I guess that's another revenue stream. A combination of superstars having other options and the allure of the niche down festival leads to things like artist-led festivals, like J. Cole's aforementioned Dreamville Fest, and maybe a better example, Tyler the Creator's Camp Flog Gnaw. Both of these guys do other festivals besides their own, but when they get to do their own, they can curate it in their own world. And their fans look at these guys like the number one guys. Whether or not anybody else does, it doesn't really matter. And now, instead of taking headliner money, they get headliner and organizer money, which probably looks a little bit different and in their favor. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter what the music world outside of the attendees of those festivals think about those headliners. To their fans, they're perfect.
She is very gorgeous to me.
So as the next wave of superstars crops up, first of all, they might not ever become as big as Beyonce, as big as Rihanna, as big as Drake, just because monoculture is not the same anymore. But for the guys becoming the new model of a superstar, some might take the traditional path and use that to their advantage like Chappell Roan did. Maybe others will see what Tyler and J. Cole do and see some value in splitting off on their own and creating their own thing. If I'm gonna sit here and make predictions for you, I think it's a pretty safe bet that the cream of the crop, like the Coachellas, the Glastonburys, the Lollapaloozas, they're gonna keep going. But I don't think it would be crazy to see a pretty big named festival close in the next couple of years, as long as things keep going the way that they're going. But at the end of the day, I think people enjoy the concept of music festivals, right? And so I think if people can't afford them, then there will be smaller indie versions that will not put a hole in your wallet like Coachella does that people will go to. Maybe more and more of those will pop up. They already exist, but maybe they'll become more of a priority for fans who are like, I can't do Coachella this year, but I still want that experience. And beyond that, I think you might see more bespoke and more niche options. One that came to mind for me, probably because I would buy a ticket to it, is like a blog era type festival, like a nostalgia fest, kind of like when we were young, kind of like Lovers and Friends, except for that blog era that includes rappers like Wale, Big Sean, Kid Cudi. Maybe you bring Drake and he only does So Far Gone, but then also includes like the indie acts from the internet in that era, you know? I don't know, like Beach House. Shitty Bang reunion set would go crazy. I mean, you know, I'm just spitballing here. I would go to that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys enjoy going to festivals? Is that something that you want to see continue to be a part of your music experience? Or do you think they're just kind of a giant waste of money and you just end up really tired and you could have gone to 40 concerts instead? Where do you think it's going to go in the future? Let me know in the comments. And let me know what you want me to cover next. Peace.